So, before we get into today's video, to take off the kayfabe just for a few moments, my girlfriend and I have been in a really unstable job position and everything, but a friend of ours is offering to let us move in with her when she moves to Albuquerque in a few months for school. Now, moving down there provides us the benefits of more protected trans healthcare, and after a year of residency, potentially college. Right now, our biggest problem is raising the funds to get down there. I've started a GoFundMe that's linked in the description below. If you can donate, that'd be amazing, but if you can't, just keeping the link circulating would be fantastic on its own. But anyway, on to the video. So aesthetically, what can you really say about G1 Ravage? Other than, he's the start of it all. And, he does portray a giant metal jaguar fairly well. This one specifically actually came packed in with a Kingdom interpretation of his Beast Force counterpart, though. And as such, it actually has a mirrored printing of the tape decals on the other side. Unlike certain mold changes like with the Bumblebee reissues, I'm actually fine with this and feel like it enhances the toy. He is really quite flat, however, and getting him to stand, even with the stabilizing force of his accessories, can prove kinda difficult. Articulation-wise, he's a toy from the 80s. There's not much you can do with him, especially with how flat he is. There are very few decent poses you can get out of him, despite the actually rather large amount of moving parts for a toy of that era. Though, it is undeniable that he's got a certain charm to him, even in this day and age. He reminds me of those wooden stacking animal toys you would see, the Sultan stacking in Aladdin, actually. Ravage's transformation is quick, and as you'd expect from an 80s toy, pretty simple, resulting in a really pleasing to look at mini cassette. Truth be told, back as a small computer, I thought he was a regular cassette. And being a child of 1995, it reminded me of some of the cassettes I'd listen to AC/DC or the Power Rangers soundtrack on. Despite being at just the point between cassettes and CDs, I always did think tapes were just a bit cooler. And he's a charming little thing if nothing else. And if you can pick a version of him up for cheap or packed in with someone else, I'd most certainly recommend it. Now for the Soundwave test. The only two Soundwave figures I have are the Titan's Return mold and Sadwave himself, the Bumblebee movie Soundwave. So let's see if this Ravage fits in either of them. That's a no on the Bumblebee one. But a resounding success on the Titan's Wave. For the aesthetics of the Siege Ravage, they are fairly solid, but I can't say I'm the biggest fan of the incorporation of his missile pods into the mold itself. Also, considering the way he has to fold up into a data slug, or shield as Siege claimed, he does come off as feeling fairly hollow all around. And the overall build and look of him does not help the confusion many have on whether or not he's a cat or a dog. Now, posability-wise, he obviously does a lot more than the 1984 mold. But with the way it moves and the lack of a tail and only a minor semblance of one implied, it does feel more befitting a canine. Which is kind of funny considering Target Prime is coming with a Redeco of this Ravage that does just that with it. The transformation results in a cute little device, while not literally being a cassette tape, still gives a bit of the vibe of one. And if you already have a decent G1 Ravage, though, this one is a nice, cute little addition, but I don't think you really need it. Now let's move on to the Soundwave test. Alright, first we're trying Bumblebee one, the Bumblebee one, and trying this way, and yeah, that's a no-go. Dang. Alright, let's try folding it up into more of a box. Huh, what do you know? That actually works. And, works right away for the Titan Soundwave, though. Now, this one's a bit more intricate design-wise than the others, and it has a lot of the greeble you'd expect from one of the more movieverse-esque design. But it doesn't quite feel as alien as the Revenge of the Fallen design. And unlike many of those Bumblebee movie designs, I actually think that's a net loss. Not to say that this isn't a good Ravage design, it's stellar, really. It's just a bit of a shame that this is the first Studio Series Ravage and we didn't get a new take on the Revenge of the Fallen design getting the limelight first. I do like that the missile pods / blasters are slimmed down, and along with the launcher on his upper body, it really gives him a sleek war machine vibe. I can actually feel a very slight Transformers Energon influence on this Ravage, having a bulkier look not too dissimilar to Battle Ravage from that series. Now, articulation-wise, he's got some decent ball joints in all 4 of his legs, some tail movement, and unlike our first 2 entries, an actually opening mouth. And his transformation is deceptively simple. Now, unlike G1, you don't technically have to remove the rocket pods and accessories to transform him, but I'm going to because I just find it easier. Now, the resulting alt mode, I really think you all need to apologize to the Bumblebee movie Soundwave. You all claimed he transformed into nothing, when it's clearly a design inspired by the speeders in Star Wars. When this guy looks like he was made by 52 Toys, he's just a box. Thankfully for him, I do think the Jaguar mode is more than enough to justify the price of around $10-ish USD. Now on to the Soundwave test. Unsurprisingly, he fits snug as a bug in a rug into his Soundwave's chest. Though to actually get him out, you've got to open up his back. He just will not get into the Titan's Return Soundwave though, and that is a major bummer, man. Now, it's understandable. You may be initially confused by why Shadow Panther is placed here. But, there is a whole story about Shadow Panther and his relationship with Ravage. You see, Shadow Panther was originally a Japanese exclusive toy, and then when he did eventually become available in English-speaking markets, they marketed him as Tripredacus Agent. So for a good chunk of Beast Wars fans, Shadow Panther was the closest thing they could get without importing Metal's Ravage, which, at the time, was a much heftier import fee than it is now. And overall, his aesthetics are something I actually do really dig. And I appreciate Kingdom carrying on the trend The Gathering did, where, for the Redico characters, they get the head that wasn't used in the show to give them a bit of an identity of their own. Well, most of the time. much as I would have loved a new look for Kingdom's version of T-Rex. Now, Shadow Panther has a certain intimidation factor that really works for a covert agent in my book. It's really easy to imagine him as some sort of protege of the original Ravage. Now, when it comes to his posability, he's got it where it counts, and it's honestly a little better than even Marvel Legends figures for the most part. Though I do wish his feet were just a little bigger to give a bit more stability. Even with that said, you can get him into almost every pose you could think of. Now his transformation is surprisingly intricate and fun. I actually quite enjoy it, so here you go. Now the resulting Panther form, honestly I think it's stunning. The black coat and red eyes really make him resemble his mentor quite a bit. And as for the cat's posability, honestly this mold may just be the most posable and expressive mainline cat transformer I've ever seen. With massive movement in all four of his limbs and head. His head also has a moving jaw, by the way, much like our earlier example in Studio Series. He's predatory where Cheetor was kind of friendly. Honestly, I definitely think you should pick up at least one of this mold. He's a bit lanky compared to, say, Tigatron, but it's fitting in my opinion. If you're a fan of the obscure toy-only guys like I am, you're really gonna appreciate this guy. So maybe for him, the obscurity is on purpose, given the covert agent status? Who knows? Now for the Soundwave test. Now, no matter what I try, I can't seem to get him into Bumblebee Soundwave, even sticking out at all. And for the Titans mold, well, there's chest bursting, but you can't close the door, so I really can't give it to you, Titans Soundwave. You're out of luck. Oh man, from the aesthetics of this guy alone, what more can I say other than he's a masterclass in replicating the design from the show. From his cat head to his muscular body, the only thing that would make him more accurate is a button to make him speak in a bad Russian accent. He is great, and the dual magnums are a really nice touch and fairly accurate to the show as well. Now, posability-wise, he's got all the same posability of Shadow Panther up there, sharing several parts with him. However, thanks to the lack of the sort of flesh wings that characters from Cheetor's mold have, he's actually improved quite a bit. Now, after transforming him, I was honestly surprised to see the same parts that make up Shadow Panther's side covering instead fill up the empty spots in Ravage's back in beast mode. And aesthetically, I do quite like the cat mode, given it's basically another Shadow Panther, and while I know having slightly more muscle is somewhat accurate to Jaguars versus Panthers, I have to confess I'm not really fond of the big human-esque torso if you look at his belly. And it's really hard not to look at his belly since I know it's there. Honestly, because of that, his beast mode holds together a lot less in terms of aesthetic when compared to Shadow Panther for me. And due to the pattern of the fur and everything on him, it feels less like a Transmetal fusion of tech and organic, and more just like they didn't finish his leg. The guns on his thighs kinda help though. Now, naturally, as you might expect, these two cats do have identical articulation. Overall, though, I'd say it's worth picking up if you can get it. And hey, he is really well priced, all things considered, on the aftermarket. Now for the sound wave test. Bumblebee wave? No. Titans wave? Also no. Sad. I cry every Tim. Every Tim. Every single Tim. Oh, Transmetal II Ravage. Where do I begin with you? I have the utmost adoration. Now, you were released as Tripredacus Agent. This ended up becoming the subject to one of my favorite fan bios to do. One where I worked with my friend Corporal Corgi for the voice acting. Where this guy was, in reality, a rebuilt Shadow Panther brainwashed to think he's Ravage. And honestly, this toy has always been one of my grails, so if I'm being entirely honest, this entire video is just an excuse to talk about it again. So, for the aesthetics, I just love the asymmetrical and absolutely feral look to the Cheetor Transmetal II mold in particular. I'd say that it's one of the reasons I'd consider myself a furry today. Just the smug confidence of the smirk says it all. It's very werewolf. When it comes to his articulation, while it doesn't quite measure up to the prior two entries, I like it more, so I'm giving it the point because it really does hold up remarkably well for the time. It was like more posable than most retail action figures at the time. For gimmicks, he's got a missile launcher that still does hit with a good bit of force. Now his transformation is actually surprisingly fun and simple. You're basically turning him inside out. I still just really love the werewolf-like aesthetics to him and everything. It's really very solid. Now, he's not as articulated as the previous two cat modes, but it's still very solid and you can get a lot of poses with him. But yes, my point when it comes to Transmetal II Ravage's aesthetics is that I want him to rail me for so long, I've already come home. Anyway, time for the final Soundwave test. Alright, with Bumblebee movie Soundwave? Of course, he doesn't fit at all. You know, since he's my favorite, I'm going to say that he did. And with the Titans Return Soundwave, he doesn't fit inside of that chest at all either. But you know, I do really like this Ravage. So I'm going to say he did. Overall, though, I think our favorite dangerous black kitty cat has proven to be one of the staple characters who will always come back to the franchise in one form or another, whether he's just growling at you or he's an eloquent speaker. It's all Ravage. I can't wait to see what form he takes on next. See you next time, stars. Tiv out. Moo!